Let's throw our hands in the air
Woo-hoo.
as we soar through the sky.
Yatta.
We'll catch the sun
Woo-hoo.
with your hand in mine, and
Yeah.
if we work as a team, everything will be fine.
Yeah!
Oh, it's Cure of the What Now?
Let's henshin and start the show!
Hello, fellow humans? Humans! We're all humans here of Alzora Middle School, and welcome to episode 17 of Cure of the What Now, the only show where we know the one way to commit crimes faster is to get leggies so you can run from the cops. My name is Kat, and what in the heck are these things in my hair?
Oh my gosh, you have some in your eyebrows too.
What? No, get them out!
Oh wait, no, those are eyelashes. I'm sorry. I'm used to this whole human thing, you know, it's new for me.
It's what? You haven't been human this whole time?
No, actually, I'm Joel, I'm the co-host, and I'm the cute little sea fairy trying to hide inside of the sock drawer, but I'm just a little bit too chubby and my tail's poking out.
Karurin's a fat little man.
We have a word in the household of the pot. I don't want to say our last name, but in our household, in the Cotwin household, we have a word, and it's plorf, and that describes any animal that is abundantly fat, but it has to be kind of in a cute way as well.
Karurin certainly is a plorf. I was about to call him a clorf, and that sounds like a Star Trek alien.
It does.
Joel, you have a great discussion question to lead us into today's episode.
Absolutely. Now, in case the thumbnail didn't alert you, and in case you somehow haven't seen the episode yet, we now have confirmation of Laura becoming a human. So the reverse of that, I think, would be kind of an interesting discussion question. Are there any animals or mythical creatures that you would think would be appropriate for the other tropical club members to become?
Now, close your eyes and
They are closed.
Imagine with me Werewolf Songo.
It's funny because werewolf was the first creature that came to my mind when I thought of the question, but I wouldn't have associated it with Songo because Songo is just a little bit too timid, which can also work really well for the werewolf. It kind of plays on the expectations, but I think Asuka for werewolf because she acts kind of tough at first, but then once you get to know her, she's a big sweetie. But, okay, yeah.
You wouldn't go with, Gorgon for Asuka? She turns people to stone by looking at them?
No, I don't. I mean, if you want to, go ahead and... Is there any other explanation to that?
She's cold and reserved, and like you said, she doesn't warm up to people quickly. So I think that if she could have the power to turn people to stone for looking at her, she would.
Do you think she would have used it on the student council president?
Yes. She also absolutely would have used it on Manatsu when Manatsu started badgering her. Minori for, fawn or dryad.
Okay, yeah.
So the one with the deer leggies or the tree girl.
Yeah, the satyrs, right? I think those are the...
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's goat legs, right? But
yeah.
That's Phil from Hercules.
All the same sort of creature, honestly. Upper half human, bottom half animal leggies with hooves.
Okay, and then what would you choose for Manatsu?
That one's hard. What Tropica shines for Manatsu?
What if she's a dragon that collects motivation energy? She hoards, optimism or something like that.
No, she wouldn't want to hoard that because she wants everybody to have it.
Okay, so dragon wouldn't make much sense.
Cat girl Manatsu. Imagine Manatsu up on a shelf and you're like, how did you get up there? And she hisses at you. And then you're like, get down. And she very slowly knocks something off the shelf.
That would be Laura as a cat. I could see Manatsu, you like, how'd you get up there? And then she hisses and she just bolts out of the room going like 100 miles an hour. And you're like, how the heck?
Yeah, or one time our cat, Rocket, did that. And he decided that the best way to get down was to jump down onto my face.
Yes, that was a very fun moment for you and him. You really bonded in that moment. They say that trauma can bring people together.
I am not trauma bonded to my cat.
Okay. So I think for my picks, I honestly had kind of forgotten about like the nice version of fairies because, you know, in the traditional fae legends back in like medieval times, there were like these wicked creatures that would kind of steal children away, and they'd play tricks on people and all these other things. But we have a modern day version of fairies that better aligns with, like, say, My Little Pony and Winx Club, where they're nice and beautiful and stuff. So I think like a rainbow butterfly wing fairy makes sense for Manatsu, and she can kind of go around giving out motivation energy like a fairy godmother type character. I do love your idea of Songo as a werewolf. That would be adorable, but I think that I would be inclined to give Songo maybe like Pegasus or Centaur, maybe? Okay. She could be Manatsu's mount as they ride into battle.
Oh, no.
What?
No, it's...
Don't make this weird. Don't make this any weirder than it has to be.
I'm not making anything weird. The writers of this episode, of the PreCure episode we watched, made it weird. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And then for Minori, I'm just not sure. I wasn't able to really come up with one. Maybe like dwarf, possibly? I'm not really sure.
So Minori likes to write, so she's creative, and she is analytical, or she can be, and she's very good at empathizing. Maybe angel for Minori, or like a muse.
Okay. I'm remembering now, I came up with this question a couple of days ago. I think that Minori could make a good Cupid, where she analyzes people to try and figure out if she should try to match them together or anything like that.
Oh my goodness. I don't really know anything about the Hugto girls, but I hope that's the route they went with Lulu.
Okay.
Before she roboted off into the ether, or whatever she did at the end of that series.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the main episode, I did see a question about the thumbnail of last week's episode. I've discovered the power of, it's not Photoshop exactly, but I found the ability to take pictures and put them really badly, like a word clip art type of collage, in order to create a thumbnail. And I saw one person saying, "What's up with the random Kira Yukari?" or Kira Macaron in the corner. Now, I don't know if they listened to the episode before they asked, or if they just saw it and they were like, oh my gosh, I have to ask. But since we usually cover very briefly an episode of Futari Wa, and now with my watch-along of Kira PreCure All Mode, longest PreCure title ever, they're probably going to end up in the thumbnail as well. They won't be as prominent as the Tropical girls, but I'll try to sneak in like one Nagisa or Honoka, or one of the Kira PreCure girls.
Perfect. So, Kira PreCure.
What was it? Oh no, Kira PreCure.
Just a single Kira, I think.
Maybe. The more Kira, the more powerful it becomes.
You know, Star Twinkle and Kira really could have had a perfect crossover, because Star Twinkle was all about feeding Fua.
I mean, I guess so, yeah.
I don't know that it was all about that, but I have a very vivid memory of you explaining a set of episodes of Star Twinkle to me, and then getting very dramatic and going, "Now, feed Fua." And that's the only way I will ever be able to hear the Star Princess's voices.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Do you want to hit us with that sweet, sweet, succinct summary of this episode?
Yes. And surprisingly, even though there's a lot to talk about, the succinct summary is very easy. Laura is, the last episode ended with, "Do you want to become human? Just help me out." And in this episode, she goes, "No, I'm a good guy. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to do some kind of deal with the devil with you, lady." And she eventually escapes. At first she basically needs Kururun's help to escape, even though Kururun did not get the keys like he was asked to.
She anticipated Kururun's failure and planned for it.
I suppose so. Manatsu and them have been following Laura's trail of bubbles, and it leads her to a ship where both Chongi-Rei and Dr. Numeri have created Zenzen Yarane Das, and they try to say, "We'll cover for you, Summer, go save your girlfriend." But when she jumps into the water, or as she turns to jump off the boat, Chongi-Rei starts fighting himself. He jumps in and he starts fighting Summer. Laura is very briefly knocked unconscious as she tries to escape by the butler who has no name, and she has a dream of being with the girls and really enjoying her time there. But then she wakes up and she's with the queen of the Grand Ocean, and the queen's like, "Hey, you can just hang out here if you want. You can just quit doing your job." And she goes, "No, I think I like those human girls." And the queen goes, "All right, here's your definitely not a henshin item." And Laura goes, "Thank you."
Laura goes, "It's a rock."
It's a rock, strangely shaped like a henshin item. What could it mean? And she swims off. She saves Summer, who was drowning. That's really cute. And she transforms because the rock was actually a henshin item.
It was a what?
Who knew? And Cure Lemaire is born, and then they beat the bad guys, and that's the end of the episode. Laura now, it seems, has permanent leggies.
Yeah, and I think Manatsu spoke for us all when she looked at Laura and said, "Feet." That was the whole episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think of this episode?
Yes. I really like that Laura is now going to be part of the group, and I think that she did an amazing job with her debut. It felt very epic. She felt very cool. She felt very composed. Her saving Manatsu it's huge for anyone who kind of like wants to ship these two, and I think they're one of the most logical pairs of people because, you know, they're the separated from different worlds type of trope or whatever. But I will say that it wasn't very dramatic. Like, Laura escaped almost immediately, and the fact that she just, like, happened to wake up in the Queen's Kingdom was kind of weird. By the way, Karurun saved her. That's how she ended up there. But, like, I don't know, I got the impression that the Queen was maybe, like, petrified after Laura had left, and it's weird that they just happened to give her this magical MacGuffin that happens to be useful literally 10 seconds after she discovers it, you know? There's no, like, mystery of her trying to figure out what's this mysterious item for the past couple of episodes.
Yeah, you'd think they would have taken a couple of episodes. I also was a little bit disappointed that the girls didn't do anything. Like, Laura saved herself pretty much. And then also she went and she saved them. And I get that the idea is that Laura is more competent than the rest of them. I think they explicitly call that out in the episode. But
they call that out in the episode from her point of view. So it could be construed as it's fact, but it could also be construed as she just thinks highly of herself. She's very confident.
Yes. We also the new henshin sequence is pretty cool.
The new henshin sequence is amazing. We could talk about that if you want to in greater detail. We have a new ending, which is pretty incredible.
Oh my god, we have a new ending. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to listen to it again before we talk about it, but we'll get there at the end of this episode.
Okay, I like it.
But yeah, I'm about with you. I liked this episode. Okay. I felt excited for the parts that were supposed to be exciting. But I do think that the writing could have been a little bit tighter.
And can I just say, it's a little disappointing. Like, I'm good for Laura being able to stick to her morals and saying, like, I'm not going to help you. You're clearly evil. At the same time, I think that was a really interesting way to create tension. Will Laura give in? What will she have to give up? But she just kind of was given these powers. And I'm wondering if maybe that was, like, planting the seeds, maybe in episode 37 or somewhere much further down the line, someone else who's not as strong as Laura will be tempted, or there will be a more tempting offer, such as, you know, I'll kill Manatsu unless you agree to this deal with me, or something like that. But the way it paid off in this episode, so long as it's not foreshadowing for, like, something more interesting, that was a little disappointing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You could have given her a couple of episodes to really wrestle with it. And then eventually she could have another showdown with the witch, and the witch could be like, are you still delaying your decision? And Laura could be like, I don't need to delay. My answer is no.
Yeah, or like, we had Laura being troubled last episode, and then in this episode she kind of gets over it. But what if she had been given the offer from the witch in secret, and that's what had been bothering her? If you changed the order of the way things happened, you could have had a couple of episodes where we were worried that Laura was going to make a bad choice and she'd need to be saved by the others, but then she could come to the right conclusion or whatever. But no, I I love Keir Lemaire. I had to draw her as soon as she made her official debut, and not really all that surprising. I think as soon as Laura showed up, I think everyone was already talking about whether she was going to be a PreCure or not, even if they didn't have the foreknowledge of it. But I did try to allude to this without giving it away, but I did have it spoiled for me several weeks ago that this was going to happen. But as a happy coincidence, I thought it was going to happen in episode 18. So the fact that it happened in 17, cool. I wasn't expecting it quite right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was looking at the wiki trying to figure out what her henshin words are, because she says different things from the normal group of girls. Apparently her charm point is her nails, which surprised no one.
She just lumps all of the face into one. She just goes, face, and that's her hair and her cheeks and her lips and her eyes.
Yes, and then she does nails and then dress.
Yes.
So I think, oh man, I can't decide where I fall on her design, because on one hand, her top and her bottom make shark teeth.
Oh yeah, in her stomach region. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. I really like the colors. I like that traditionally PreCure get like dresses or skirts, but she kind of has pants with like a little like tennis skirt over it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's cool because her whole thing was wanting legs. So of course in her Cure form, it's going to highlight the thing that she wanted most, which is the legs.
Yes.
But her hair is weird. I don't like the orbs.
Okay, yeah, they seem a little impractical if you think about actually having orbs the size of your face hanging around in your hair, but they didn't bother me too much. I've always felt that the secret sixth ranger, or whatever the trope is called, I've always called it secret member, but I guess the actual term is sixth ranger, but they always are a little bit extra in some way or another, so I understand that.
I guess from a design perspective, I don't like any of the Cure designs where their hair doesn't look like it could be real hair.
Yeah, okay, I could see that.
You know, like I'll stretch the bounds of imagination for like Ichika's hair, because yeah, it's giant. No real person's hair is going to be giant, but at least it still looks like hair. But Cure Lemonade, we're not doing this. We're not doing these weird cones.
Yeah, absolutely. But any other kind of general thoughts?
I was really tempted to do the general thoughts thing there. No, I wouldn't say that I have a whole lot of other thoughts. We got our two new pieces of information. We got her attack.
Yes.
And her, what would you call that at the end of the henshin? Like roll call?
Her transformation phrase or her roll call? Yeah. So, much like how we meme on Cure Papaya being sparkling fruits, she is swaying ocean, Cure Lemaire. And let me just say, you have the imagery of her emerging from the ocean and kind of like mid-leap in the air when she transforms, and she winks at the camera. So that's full of personality. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of full of personality, I know this wasn't part of what we were discussing right now, but her victory pose. She straight up just kicks her leggy all the way up in the air and like bends over backward.
I was wondering what her victory pose would look like, right? And at first, it's her with her back to the camera and she's facing the enemy that she just blasted. And then she flips backwards to the point where her head is upside down and she just has one leg sticking straight up in the air. And okay, thanks, Laura. That's incredible. Much like how I think that Papaya and a Minori are kind of two separate entities. I feel like Papaya is much more outgoing. I feel like Cure Lemaire is a bit sillier than Laura was. But, I mean, it's still good. I like it.
Absolutely. And then her final attack wasn't the most interesting final attack. She basically summons a big ol' water. She uses Hydro Pump, and it's a PreCure Twister La Mer Stream.
Yes.
Can I say something cursed?
Sure. That was incredibly cursed. Yes, thank you very much.
You can bleep it out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I might just cut it out entirely and just put it in the bloopers and extras.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
But I like, too, that because she has seen the other girls do their finishing move, and she was there when they each became PreCure. She didn't have to be like, what is this? She already knew how to do a final attack. She's like, yep, I taught them how to do it, now I'm gonna do the same thing.
Yes, like Minatsu, she was not at all surprised by her being PreCure. She was born to be PreCure, honestly.
Absolutely.
We did watch our episode of Futari Wa PreCure this week. Turns out Honoka is a good girl. And Nagisa is annoying.
This episode, the 50,000-foot view is that Nagisa has had a crush on a boy, and Honoka has figured it out. So Honoka basically tries to set them up, and Nagisa spends the entire episode being like, I can't do it, I'm embarrassed. But also, Honoka makes friends with the small child who is among the evil villains and seems to be slowly winning him over. So that's pretty nice.
Via lecturing him.
Yeah, by being a big sister, essentially.
Absolutely, which... Honestly, I think that Honoka could probably take Nagisa's younger brother and be a better big sister to him than...
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you'd think that maybe stereotypically the one who was the older sister would be better at scolding the young child, but, I mean, the relationship between Nagisa and her brother seems more kind of realistic, and maybe Honoka's comes from a place of, I've never had siblings, but I wouldn't mind a younger brother, so I'm gonna project that onto this child.
Absolutely. Now, here's the thing. I hate it when characters have a conflict that could be solved by using their words.
Yes.
And I especially hate conflicts like this because, and I hate it when friends in real life do this too. Like, oh, I like this person, but I can't say anything to them, so I'm going to play these stupid games. No. Either you say something and the worst thing that can happen is they will say no, and then you won't be dating them. Or you don't say anything, and then the best thing that can happen is you won't be dating them. So it's stupid to remain silent. You are being stupid.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand feeling a bit shy and flustered about it, but I just feel like they're trying to drag this out because they think that it's an interesting plot point, where really it should be like, one episode of Nagisa finding some way to overcome that and be courageous, in a sense.
Yeah. I don't think... So there weren't really any male characters in Mahosukai, right? There wasn't any pining there. There was the one tennis boy that Flora played tennis with sometimes.
And Prince Kanata.
And, there was Prince
Kanata.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was his name. I had to check my brain. But generally speaking, the seasons that we've really liked haven't had this relationship drama subplot. And I think that PreCure really is at its best when it's focusing on its relationships between girls. And that doesn't even have to be a shipping thing. That can be a friendship thing. But this, like... I like them and I'm paying all of my attention to that. Like, no, I'm here for a superhero show. Yeah,
it's kind of like how to some people the life of Bruce Wayne or Barry Allen isn't as interesting as the lives of Batman or the Flash or whichever hero you want to pick. Sometimes it works really well. Spider-Man's main appeal is that he struggles to balance his two lives, and his real life, his Peter Parker life, is very relatable. But for the most part, it feels like it could be forced in some situations. And I think that any PreCure season that focuses really heavily on like, oh, I like this boy, it feels kind of time-wasty, even if that is a realistic thing for girls that age to be thinking about.
Yeah, well, and like, I would love, they're both athletes, right? Mm-hmm. So I would love for them to show some competitiveness with each other, or to be excited about sports and talking about that. Like, anything that would actually further their character.
Yeah.
That matters. That's not just this, like, empty time waster.
Yeah, I get you. Well, and it's kind of funny because, you know, the creator of the first season wanted them to be in, like, non-stereotypically girly positions. So Honoka's on the science team, and Nagisa is on the lacrosse team. But in this particular aspect, Nagisa is conforming exactly to what girls should be by being kind of embarrassed to talk to the boy that she likes and liking him mostly just because he's cute. Like, she hasn't actually had a conversation with him long enough to actually know why she likes him. I will say, with the subtext, I don't know where I got undertext from. The subtext of Nagisa and Honoka are the OTP of PreCure. It is very interesting that the one time Nagisa was able to talk to Fuji P is his name, was when he said something about Honoka being too strict, and she's like, I think Honoka is the bee's knees. And then later, she gets this little, like, love compatibility test, and I thought for sure the episode was going to end with her somehow accidentally doing it with Honoka, and being like, that's weird, I don't like girls, that's wrong. But they didn't go that overt route. But I think there's a couple of seeds in this episode about how their relationship is growing, and if you think that maybe there's more to it than that, I don't think that the text is disagreeing outright.
Absolutely. We've never concerned ourselves with ships, I guess I should say. Like, generally speaking, people can ship what they want, and if I don't ship it or if I think it's gross, I just won't follow the content.
Absolutely.
Speaking of shipping, ample opportunities in Kira Kira. Did you watch an episode of that this week?
Yes, I did, and one of the screenshots, I still haven't decided which screenshot I took is going to make it into the episode preview, but one of them I titled as Now Kiss, because Rio has decided that he's going to do his final experiment, and he follows Ichika home. He walks with Ichika home because she likes him and she thinks that he's a friend, but he's actually not. But then he, like, leans in, he's like, sweets aren't anything, nobody loves you, and their faces were really close, and I think that they have the most kind of interaction with each other. But Rio has finally revealed himself to all of the PreCure, and he manages to copy their, like, final attacks, and they can't beat him until Ichika decides that she is full of love and she's boundless energy, and she overpowers him. And my favorite moment in that entire episode is after Rio gets defeated, she untransforms, and he's all like, grr, I'm evil. And she goes, why don't we have some cookies and talk about it? You gotta explain why you're evil. And Rio goes, no! And he runs off. But, like, the main PreCure almost always has empathy for the bad guy to some degree or another, although you can only take that empathy so far. Once they try to blow up the planet in episode 48, that's when you've got to eradicate them with a rainbow laser beam. But something about the way the line was delivered and something about the way she was talking to him, it really connected with me more so than other characters I've seen who fights over want to be friends. Like, it worked for me.
Yeah. Kira Kira is a season all about finding the thing that you love and pouring your heart into it. Mm-hmm. And Ichika genuinely believes that you can communicate those feelings through sweets. Sweets are the thing that she loves more than anything else. And so she sees this evil person and she's like, how can I reach him with my feelings? Cookies. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, in Go Princess, which is one of my favorite seasons, there's not really a reason that Close and Lock and Shut are doing evil things. Like, there's a subplot with one of them, he wants to become stronger. Like, they all want to become stronger, but there's not really, like, a why. Whereas in Kira Kira, it seems like, and I mean, you've already told me about the whole season, so I know it's true, but, like, the motivations come from a very human place, and they're very relatable. You can understand why Rio and Bibury and all these other people turned bad. There were specific elements in their life that has to do with that theme of love that twisted them in some way or another.
For sure. And speaking of Bibury, who was that mysterious bad guy at the end of the episode?
I do like the implication that there's, like, an evil council of bad guys, and Rio's been running around, but they've been, like, laughing at him. They're like, that lizard thinks he can make bad Kira Kira. What an idiot. But we'll let him have his fun. Oh, he got defeated? Now it's time for the real bad guys to step in. Step aside, bitches. It's time for evil Kermit the Frog.
Oh, no. For those of you who didn't get the opportunity to listen to our PreCure bonus episode available on our Patreon, let me just give you a taste of what you're missing. Bibury has a vor puppet.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
Yep, and with that, we can get back to the other PreCure.
I'm sorry, I do have one note before we go back to the main topic, Tropical Rouge. We are still watching Fresh PreCure. We're not going to give weekly updates. We've already talked about that, but Tart is one of my favorite fairies. I love him.
Aggressive single dad energy.
He's trying his best, but also he's kind of an idiot.
Yep,
you know?
him and Donut Shop Man Kaoru. Just two single dads, not deadbeat dads, but just single dads.
Two single dads who live together and help watch each other's children, but it's not a romantic relationship. It's purely platonic between this weird fairy ferret and this donut selling old man.
Oh man, but Kaoru's bed broke and he doesn't want to sleep on the couch, so could we share for the evening, Tart?
Oh my goodness.
No, so I thought I had the perfect segue because the Vor puppet thing was like kind of weirdly fetishy. And we gotta talk about Keir Lemaire's feet.
I mean, if you want to.
We don't have to talk about it at length, but I personally was a little uncomfortable with the like zoom in on her feet during her henshin.
Yeah. So to set the scene, at the beginning of her transformation, she does the face thing. And then she says, nails. And it shows her using her magic wand to paint her fingernails. But then she also leans down and she paints her toenails. And I think that if you asked Toei, and if you ask people who don't know like what a fetish or a show feet references, what it means, they would just be like, no, it's impactful. It's part of her character development. She didn't have legs. She wanted legs to fit in. The previous episode, she wanted to paint her nails, but she couldn't, or her toenails, but she couldn't. And so like, it makes sense from that point of view. But as someone who's been on the internet for longer than 10 minutes, I definitely know what the phrase show feet means. And when the camera zoomed in on it, I went, oh no, this isn't good.
We were making jokes about Laura getting ready for her OnlyFans and her being like, OnlyFans? What's that? People are only fans of me? Well, of course they are.
Manatsu, I have 500 followers. No!
Manatsu, the followers say show feet. Put that down.
I do gotta say, like you pointed out in Keir Lemaire's design, she's wearing what I think are tights, basically, to kind of show off her legs, but not in like a, look at this skin. But she's also wearing, well, you know what I mean? She's not being a floozy about it, but she is like, I got legs I'm gonna put on pants. And in that same way, I finally got feet, so now I'm gonna wear sandals. And I thought that was a pretty good, little moment right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Laura's feet. Those exist and they are there. Let it be known that I will never shy away from making the joke show feet. But for me, it's just like whatever, man.
Yeah, I'm not. I have members of my family who are like violently disgusted by feet. Like if you get your feet close to them, they'll be like, get away from me. Which I think is stupid. Like they're just feet. But they're also just feet. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing interesting about them. There's nothing exceptionally disgusting about them. They're just there.
Okay. Do you think... I mean, this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but do you think in the future that Laura might be introduced to high heels and she might refuse to take them off?
Yes.
You can't stop me, cops!
There's a sign that says "Don't walk on grass," and she looks at it and she says, "This sign can't stop me because I can't read." She's stomping all over the grass in her little high heels.
Minori and Asuka try to tackle her, but she's just like this wild monkey, man. She's like jumping off their backs and like swinging off of the trees and be like, "Woo!"
Oh man, she's not a mermaid anymore. She's not slippery.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, only her bottom half was slippery, and, like, usually when you're trying to tackle someone, you try to go for, like, the chest or the shoulders.
Absolutely. I was imagining if she had spent any amount of time in water recently, her whole self would be slippery. But you're right that in the show, only her tail has been difficult for them to hold on to in the past. Did you have any favorite scenes or quotes from these episodes?
So we got two, and I think you asked me to write the second one down, so I will cover the first. And it's kind of like the badass moment of showing that Laura, she's true to her goals and won't be swayed by evil. I do want to become human, but I won't rely on your powers. I'll make my own dream come true. Good for you, Laura. You are an incredible character. We made jokes about you being a gremlin in the first couple of episodes, but now the show has gone to such lengths to show how incredible you are that it's hard for me to make those jokes, even though I would vastly prefer a gremlin princess who helped out and stopped the bad guys, but was still a little like, oh, that your food? It's mine now, rather than it being played as kind of like a cutesy moment.
Joel.
Yeah.
Have you heard the news of our Lady and Savior, Cure Princess?
Yes, I've heard of her. Tell me more, because I haven't been enlightened about the many texts that explore her wonderful personality.
Gremlin Princess steals food.
Very nice.
There's a character in that season that one of my friends described as their only role, their only reason for existing is to feed Cure Princess snacks.
Also, I didn't write this down, but I do have to shout out, there's a part where the Witch of Delays, I keep wanting to call her Queen of Delays, she grabs Laura, kind of like in a King Kong moment, so her one hand is big enough to just, wrap around Laura, and Laura just bites her finger in order to get the queen or the witch to let her go, and she swims away.
Laura bit my finger. Laura.
Yes, and that welder guy on Twitter, who's in our Discord, pointed out that that's very similar to Goku biting Frieza's tail, which, yeah, I
Aren't they both Toei too?
Yeah.
Excellent. I love the idea that was an intentional...
Oh, like homage or something? Sure.
Yeah. The other quote that we had was after Cure Lemaire reveals herself to the rest of the team, and Manatsu's all fired up, and she says, with Laura transformed, we're like 100 people. So I want to go back to earlier in this episode, when I said that she's portrayed as like significantly more competent than them, and you were like, that was just in her dream. No, Manatsu says so.
Well, yeah, but Manatsu's the type of person who'd be like, oh my god, Sango, wore a hat. She's 100 times cuter. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay.
I do agree that the Sixth Ranger is almost always more competent, and Lemaire is amazing. But I think that any exaggerations of how great she is are stoking the eagle. The eagle? There's no eagle in this show.
Stoke the eagle.
But stoking Laura's ego and playing...
Stroking.
Yeah, sure, that too, You can stoke it to make it stronger, or you can stroke it in order to make it purr like a cat, if your ego happens to be shaped like a cat.
What is your ego shaped like? A jelly donut.
Wombat with bat wings.
Yeah. So a wombat bat.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And pineapple.
So yeah, do you think that she was indeed worth 100 people? I don't know.
I think she was worth at least 50 buggies.
Okay, at least 50 buggies. That's good.
Yeah.
That's almost one Bellamy by the rating of King of the What Now.
I thought it was... No, you're right. We're just making stuff up, folks. Go listen to our other podcast, and maybe some of this will make sense.
Or not, because, we're just sitting here kind of shooting the shit.
Yeah, and I mean, the buggy rating scale was introduced 2 years ago in real world time. So. Absolutely. Anyway, did you have any other scenes that you kind of wanted to highlight from these episodes?
There's a good Laura face when the door beneath her cage opens and she falls. I liked that. And also, I alluded to it in my introduction, but Laura tells Karurun to go get the key, because Karurun's in this kind of big cell with her, but Karurun's small enough to get through the vent. Karurun is trying to sneak around Elda, who is still at the castle guarding the key, and she mentioned something about, sea cookies or whatever Karurun's favorite sweet is, and their stomach growls, and they try to hide inside, a cabinet, a drawer or something, and when Elda turns around, you can still see his little fin poking through, and she puts him in, this manacle it goes around his entire body, because he doesn't have, arms or anything else to put in and he just gets dragged through the castle and going, Karurun? I love that fairy. I love that fairy so much.
I would die for Karurun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not an exaggeration. Are we ready for predictions theories?
I think so.
So you noticed that the witch had the same gem that the Mermaid Queen has.
Yes, so they both have like a forehead gem, and I mean, right now it might just be just a physical appearance type thing, but it would make sense to me if the Witch of Delays was secretly exiled from the Grand Ocean, or maybe even has a direct connection to the royal line. That would kind of fit with Ursula's role in The Little Mermaid, and sure.
She and the current queen were both queen candidates together. And she put off doing her candidate tasks, but the queen worked diligently, and the witch has never gotten over that. And so she is trying to make a world where everybody is lazy so that she can never be beaten by someone who's more motivated again.
Okay, I like that. We talked about this last episode, but the queen asking Laura, why do you want to help the humans? Why would you help the humans? Maybe the Witch of Delays has a specific reason to dislike humans, and if they go that route, I hope it's something personal, like she was among their people and then they found out and they got mad at her or something like that, rather than I'm mad at them in general because they pollute the oceans, just because that plot has been done. That's the only reason. Like, I don't object to that. It's true that humans are polluting the ocean, but it's just done so much in fantasy that I don't.
Absolutely. But that's kind of my big prediction. Now, for the next episode, I think it's going to be really interesting to see Laura blend into the school. I would love to see her just start picking fights.
She's going to end up ruling that school in about 2 days' time.
She's going to run for president of the student body council by the end of the...
Oh, that's a really good idea. I don't think that will happen next episode, but I think next episode will be an establishment of Laura meeting a bunch of people, and I think there's 2 ways it can go. Either she has a hard time with school and she has to, like, spend time with Manatsu, who, like, hypes her up to the other classmates. But what's probably more likely, given how talented and charismatic she is, she's going to have a fan club and they're going to be waiting on her and she's going to rule that school in 2 days.
Imagine her being carried around on a crowd like Yukari.
Oh my gosh, that would be incredible. But she wouldn't want her legs to go to waste, so she'd still be like running around, but they're allowed to like fan her off or something in her classroom or whatever.
I love that. Now, is she going to join the track team or do the high jump? Like, what do you think is the most efficient use of legs?
I really do think that something in the track club would be the best way to do it. Probably like long distance, I guess, you know?
I would love to see a repeat of that scene where they were training on the beach and they were running, and Laura is keeping pace with Asuka and Manatsu because she's just so excited to be there.
Yes, absolutely. Do you think that if Laura ever goes back into the water, she'll revert to mermaid?
On one hand, I like it when mermaid-type shows do that because I think that it adds an additional element. On the other hand, I have reason to believe that they won't do that.
Sure.
And so, I think if I were guessing just based 100% on my own knowledge, I would say yes, that would be my preference.
But, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? Do you like the tension that adds, or do you think that it's been done too much?
I think it would be interesting, and they didn't really explain, like, how she became human, which is kind of my problem with this episode at its core. So, like, I don't understand if there is a mechanism to turn it back or anything like that. And maybe that's what next episode will be. Maybe it'll be Laura being like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the Grand Ocean, and she'll just be looking at her feet that are still feet, and she'll be like, okay, I'm ready to turn back now.
Be less feet.
Be fins. But I think that she'll probably just stay human for the rest of the series. Near the end, the last couple of episodes, maybe she'll get it back, but for now it seems like she's likely.
Yeah. You know what was a sweet scene that I didn't talk about?
Which one?
Her saying all of the things that she wanted to do with the different people.
Yes.
So she wants to play games with Asuka, and she wants to talk about mermaid stories with Minori, and do makeup with Sango.
Yes.
It was cute.
That was incredible.
I didn't think she was aware enough of the people around her for that.
See, that's what I'm saying. She started out as a gremlin, but they very quickly abandoned that in like episode 3. It seemed like by then she was already kind of softening up.
Absolutely.
we got a couple of thoughts from the crew this week.
That's
some
very
tweets
exciting.
in a bottle, even though none of these were on Twitter, to be clear.
Yes, most of them were on Reddit, and then there was a couple of thoughts from our friend, that one welder guy, in our Discord.
Yes. So James, that welder guy, said that was a crazy good episode. But one thing that bothers me is you can't really steal that much motivation from people on vacation on a cruise. And I actually thought about that when I saw Chongyure land on the boat and there was a bunch of people just like chilling out by the pool. I thought these people don't have anything to steal. So I guess it works, but it also kind of doesn't work if you think about it for a second. But he also got a very good screenshot of Laura and Karun looking through the bars into the vent, and his response was, they're planning their escape from federal prison. You know, isn't it great that, I mean, we weren't the first people to think of it, but a bunch of people thought of Laura as a criminal, and now we actually have a jailbreak episode. I think that's wonderful.
No, I absolutely think that that's fantastic. I hope we get more be human, do crimes from Laura.
Oh yeah, how long has she's gotten accustomed to not following the rules because she's like the mermaid and she has to remain out of sight, so like why would she start following them now? That doesn't make any sense.
Laura shares my philosophy that rules are only rules so far as they are enforced, and you can't enforce them if I believe that I'm above them.
You know what? Absolutely. And then we did put out a rare post on Reddit. We try not to flood the r/PreCure Reddit, but we thought that this was such a monumental episode that we should ask people for what they were thinking. The first comment was basically that this episode highlights Tropical Rouge's biggest flaw, and that it's a lack of dramatic tension. In most other PreCure seasons, when the Sixth Ranger has their moment, it's usually a moment of high intensity of drama. A lot of them are bad guys who end up getting kind of redeemed, or, you know, they're people who didn't want to be PreCure, but now they have a cause to fight for. And so they were basically just saying that, like, this one, it was just really lighthearted, even compared to, let me see, where is it? They compared it to Smile, which was also lighthearted, but even that had a more dramatic mid-season.
Yeah, I'm expecting we will have like a sincere despair moment, but it hasn't happened yet. And I do get the disappointment that there wasn't a little bit more tension. This episode was very close to being perfect. Right. It needed the frosting on top.
Absolutely. And let me just say, to give credit where credit is due, that comment came from Orzislaw. And we have a couple of other people in the comments. Cartoffel Elcom? I don't know how these usernames are supposed to be pronounced. I apologize. Kartoff Alcom, okay. And then Valentine Macon, they were talking about the final attack pose, and the argument was basically that Cure Lemaire made, you know, the bubble stream, which isn't really that impressive, look kind of cool just because of like the music and how she conducted herself. But they were talking about how Cure Rhythm had a really good victory screen where she walked away from the explosion type of thing. I think that's my favorite thing about Princess PreCure still as well, is just their, you know, passive aggressive, have a nice day, yes,
as
absolutely.
The person is exploding in the background. I really liked what Kartoff Elcom had to say about how Nodoka in Healing Good, her healing powers affected the entire world, and that made Manatsu overly energetic, and that's why she's so, like, unreasonably strong, even as a regular human. Yeah, well, and I think it was also why the bad guys are slightly weakened and why they're having, like, wacky adventures rather than, like, I'm gonna take over the world and stain the future black, or, you know, that kind of thing. I like that idea, and I hope that there is, if there was some nod to that, that'd be cool, but it doesn't seem like something that Toei would do. I think the meta reason for why this season is so lighthearted is because they were worried about more unexpected delays, and so they wanted to make this season as bare bones as possible, so that if they had to get rid of an episode, nothing would happen. You know, yeah. It would be the same story. Rip to Kirara. No, that's Princess. Yeah, rip to Hinata. Yeah, and then the only other comment that we got on the Reddit post was from Share Shares. They felt like the Laura storyline was analogous to being trans and having body dysphoria. And when I read this comment, I thought it was a really interesting idea. Kind of tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, So I think that you could read a trans identity, a story into this if you wanted to, but from what I understand of gender dysphoria, it's kind of like a constant unease that you weren't born the way that you should be, kind of a thing. And so it doesn't seem like Laura thought of wanting to be a human, from the moment she was born. And I don't know, maybe there are people who don't have a label for something until later in life, or it doesn't activate until they reach a certain point.
Yeah, it gets triggered later in life by
sure.
something.
But I kind of feel like the motivation was more Laura wanted to spend more time with these people and felt like an outsider rather than I was born in the wrong body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and to be clear, I do absolutely think that, especially in the last couple episodes, there was some degree of body dysmorphia, for sure. Like her staring at her tail and being like, it's not legs though, and I want it to be legs.
Okay.
Like, I think that's very relatable to anybody who's had any sort of unease in their body, whether that's trans or just body dysmorphia. And I also will say, I think I've established this before, but neither of us are trans. We're both cis people. And so we're not the perfect people to talk about trans issues, and there isn't any one perfect person because trans people aren't a monolith. So these are just our ideas. If you have different ideas and are a trans person, you are welcome to share them with us, and we will listen to them and take them into consideration. There's no awkward way to be like, yes, share your thoughts. We're interested in discussing other people's thoughts.
Absolutely. And I mean, the official stance of both of our podcasts is trans lives. Trans women are women and trans men are men. So it's not like get that trans reading out of here. But I just don't really think that this is the best way that they could have communicated it if they were trying to...
I like how we usually say trans rights, and you went for a trans lives matter, but you combined it with trans rights, so you just said trans lives.
What?
Yeah, you were like trans lives, trans women are women.
What? No, our official stance is trans rights. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I misspoke.
It's
My
okay.
bad.
Whatever, man, it's all good. But no, I do think that I get where their reading was coming from, and I think if this particular person recognized their own struggles in Laura's, that's great. I thought their point about her just magically becoming a human and being able to permanently be a human and have no problems with that, feeling kind of like a bit out of a cop-out. Yeah, I would get that. Like, you just waved a magic wand and she got the body she wanted. Wouldn't it be great if that was for all of us?
Well, I mean, like, don't even think about in this specific context, think about any story ever. It's always more rewarding if a character has to kind of fight for a power before they can earn it, or, there's some kind of a test, or there's some kind of a cost. And so, yeah, the sameness of these episodes and them wanting to always be at the status quo hurt them in this way. I think that's to its detriment, but I understand why they're playing it safe, and I hope that maybe if they get, like, a movie, maybe they'll take more risks in it, or, next year, maybe they'll take bigger risks for the next season. But...
yeah, when they're a little less afraid of a sudden global catastrophe striking again.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. The one other point from Shares that I wanted to point out, I love that username, by the way. Shares. It's as satisfying as saying Care Bears, but it has the added layer of satisfaction of the sh sound. But anyway, I liked their point that human Laura's look is very solid. They said it was better than mermaid Laura's. I still really like Laura as a mermaid, but I like her little headband that she gets as a human. It's cute.
See, when they mentioned that they liked her look, I do remember seeing human Laura and thinking, wow, they changed some elements of her design, but I tried to look at the two pictures side by side to actually identify, like, what elements were actually changed. And I must have picked the wrong picture of human Laura because it was identical except for the tail legs thing. But if there's differences in her outfits, then yeah, absolutely. I like Laura in all of her form. She's very cute and expressive, and her human form is not a miss. I like it.
Absolutely. I'm surprised that her skirt isn't closer to what she wore when she was, like, pretending to be a person so she could go on the radio show and stuff. But also, you know, she's got the legs. She wants people to see them.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, what's preventing her from just changing her clothes? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sometimes people wear...
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's not a limit on her. She can't not dress up the way that she used to dress up, but I do agree that the show probably won't have her change her outfit.
One other thing I don't think the show is going to address, and it bothers me every single season, there's a fairy who goes to school. How are they enrolling her in school? She doesn't have a birth certificate. She doesn't have parents. Who are they putting down as her legal guardian? It can't be Minatsu. She couldn't be the legal guardian of a potted plant.
And has that been your...
No, we have crack theories, don't we?
Absolutely. Okay, so I have the father of all crack theories. Here we go. Minori is the Witch of Delays. Think about it. What are the two abilities classically ascribed to mermaid witches? Cloning techniques and time travel. That's a joke. Yeah, so the Witch of Delays, who is basically a god-tier entity, cannot experience reality without first living through it. So she cloned herself, transformed that clone into a human.
Which we know she can do, because she offered to do it for Laura.
And then sent Minori back in time. She also doesn't have any memories of the fact that she's the Witch of Delays. Or maybe she's really good at pretending. And
she's delaying remembering.
Right. And so the Minori is there to acquire knowledge, which explains why Minori is constantly reading and constantly trying to understand more things. She has some vague connection to the mermaid world, which might be why she's drawn to the Little Mermaid. Not My Little Mermaid, that's something else. And that's also why she got so upset when Laura was reading her diary in the body swap episode, because it contained secrets.
But she doesn't remember she's the Witch of Delays.
Maybe she has a innate fear of what is in the journal. Maybe she's starting to remember who she is. She's starting to get glimpses, and some of those have come through in her journal. And so maybe she instinctively knows that she shouldn't let other people see this journal. It's a magical artifact type of a thing.
Okay, could be. That is a pretty good crack theory. We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. And that has been your final thought. Outro goes here. Thanks for listening, everyone, and don't forget to Tropica Shine.
Bye.
Ha-ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these two doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter is the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.